Let me guess. Couldn't sleep. Yeah, I kind of figured. Yeah. Oh, nothing, just doing some reading. Again, don't really like watching TV or going on my phone before bed. This kind of stuff's more my style. Really? Again? Okay. To be honest, I have no idea why you're so interested, but... Okay, you do you. I mean... Come on in. There we go. This one, this one's not as, heavy as the other one I read. Yeah, this is, it's Go Set A Watchman. Have you ever heard of To Kill a Mockingbird? Have you at least seen the movie? Yeah, well, this here is, well, technically the sequel to it, but, it's a bit of a long story if you know the publication behind the book. I mean, if we're being really technical, I mean, this one was technically made before To Kill a Mockingbird, but when Harper Lee, the author, she sent it over to her editor, she said wasn't any good, so she spent the next few years rewriting this one and turning that into Kill a Mockingbird. So for over say 50 or 70 so years, this book's manuscript has been on lockdown. Until back in 2014, there was there was this push from one of Harper Lee's lawyers, from one of her sister's law firm. So, I'm sorry, it's late. I could barely function. But she kind of after her sister passed away, because she's in her hundreds right now. But I'm not sure if she's passed or not, but I know her sister passed away, but still not sure if Harper Lee's still kicking. Still gotta, catch up on that. But anyway, regardless, her lawyer kind of pushed her to finish this one. So now, this is technically the sequel, even though this was written first. And it's honestly not too bad, but it's definitely, if you're a fan of To Kill a Mockingbird, it's definitely going to be a controversial read, if you will. Well, I guess you can kind of consider this like the reboot sequel or sequel boot, kind of like what they've been doing with Hollywood movies, let's say, the old Halloween with the original cast, and then the new Halloween with its current cast, or the new Star Wars, or new Indiana Jones and all that stuff. Think of this book as like that. Yeah. But I think the major controversial thing about it is that, the main... spoiler alert, by the way. Because I'm not going to read the beginning of this because I'm already way too deep into it. I can read you, the page on where I'm at right now, and then I can just... because I'm almost done. And I can just finish that up. But, just to give you, the rundown. The girl from the original? Yeah, she grows up and then goes back to Maycomb 2 decades later to meet her dad, Atticus. Only, unfortunately, when she comes back, everything's different. including Atticus. You know, the guy who basically made every kid who saw the movie or read the book want to become a lawyer, because he was like this public figure of, like, say, equality and justice. Yeah, it turns out now he's a racist. Yeah. Yeah, you can definitely see where this becomes a controversial topic. He came from being that to this to what would be considered clans meetings. Yeah. Let's just say readers who are fans of the first one were pissed. I know Styx, he was livid. He loved that book. He loved Atticus. But yeah, the book just kind of left a bad taste in his mouth after. But yeah, I guess I'll start here, let me see. Okay, let's start off with, let's go a couple chapters back. 17. That's where the tension stuff starts building, and we can just end it as we go. Okay, you ready? Comfy? Need like a pillow, or no? You're good. You're good. Okay. I guess I'll begin. Hank, said Atticus, why don't you have a good long look at the roses in the square? Estelle might give you one if you ask her right. Looks like I'm the only one who's asked her right today. Atticus put his hand on his lap, where he was tucked a fresh scarlet bud. Jean Louise glanced toward the square and saw Estelle, black against the afternoon sun, steadily hoeing under the bushes. Sorry. Henry held out his hand to Jean Louise, dropped it at his side, and left without a word. She watched him walk across the street. You known all that about him? Certainly. Atticus had treated him like his own son, had given him the love that he would have been Jim's. She was suddenly aware that they were standing on the spot where Jim died. Atticus saw her shudder. It's still with you, isn't it? He said. Yes. Isn't it about time you got over that? Bury your dead, Jean Louise? I don't want to discuss it. I want to move somewhere else. Let's go in the office, then. Her father's office had always been a source of refuge for her. It was friendly. It was a place where, if she had troubles, those troubles did not vanish. They were made bearable. She wondered if those were the same abstracts, files, and professional impedimenta on his desk that were there when she would run in, out of breath, desperate for an ice cream cone, and she would request a nickel. She could see him swing around in his swivel chair and stretch his legs. He would reach deep down into his pocket, pull out a handful of change, and from it select a very special nickel for her. His door was never closed to his children. He sat slowly and swung around toward her. She saw a flash of pain across his face and leave it. You knew all that about Hank? Yes. I don't understand men. Well, some men who cheat their wives out of grocery money wouldn't think of cheaters of the grocer. Men tend to carry their own honesty in pigeonholes. Jean Louise, they can be perfectly honest in some ways and fool themselves in other ways. Don't be so hard on Hank. He's coming along. Jack tells me you're upset about something. Jack told you, called a while ago and said, among other things, that you weren't already on the warpath you'd soon be on. From what I heard, you already are. So, Uncle Jack told him, She was accustomed now to having her family desert her one by one. Uncle Jack was the last straw, and to hell with them all. Very well. She'd tell him. Tell him and go. She would not argue with him. That would be useless. He always beat her. She never won an argument against him in her life, and she did not purposefully try now. Yes, sir. I'm upset about something. That citizens' counseling you're doing? I think it's disgusting, and I'll tell you that right now. Her father learned back then in his chair. He said, Jean Louise, you've been reading nothing but New York papers. I doubt you all have seen the wild threats and bombings and such. And Maycomb's counsel, not like the North Alabama and Tennessee kinds. Our council's composed or are led by our own people. And by that he means white people. Yeah, you can definitely see where this started to spiral down. I bet you saw nearly every man in the county yesterday, and you knew nearly every man there. Yes, sir, I did. Every man. From that snake Willoughby on down, each man was probably there for a different reason, said her father. No war has ever fought for so many different reasons. Who said that? Yeah, but they all met for one reason. I can tell you the two reasons I was there. The federal government and the NAACP. Jean Louise. What was your first reaction to the Supreme Court decision? That was a safe question, she answered him. I was furious, she said. She was. She had known it was coming. She knew what it would be. Had thought that she would prepared for it. But when she brought a newspaper on the street corner and read it, she stopped at the first bar she came to and drank down a straight bourbon. Why? Well, sir, they were there telling us what to do again, her father grinned. You were merely reacting to your kind, he said. When you started using your head, what did you think? Nothing much, but it did scare me. It seemed all backwards. They were putting the cart in front of the horse. How so? He was prodding her. Let him. They were on safe ground. Well, in trying to satisfy one amendment, it looks like they rubbed out another one. The 10th. It's only a small amendment, only one sentence long, but it seemed to be the one meant the most. Somehow. Did you think this out for yourself? Why, yes, sir, Atticus. I don't know anything about the Constitution. You seem to be constitutionally sound so far. Proceed. Proceed with what? Tell him she couldn't look him in the eye. He wanted her views on the Constitution, so he'd have them. Well, it seemed that to meet the real needs of a small portion of the population, the court set up something horrible that could affect the mass majority of folks. Adversely, that is. Atticus, I don't know anything about it. All we have is the Constitution between us, and any sum of smart folk tells us to start, and there we went to court just breezily canceling one whole amendment. It seemed to me. We have a system of checks and balances and things, but when it comes down to it, we don't have much to check on the court. So who will bell the cat? Oh dear, I'm sounding like the actor's studio. What? Nothing. I'm just trying to say that in trying to do right, we've left ourselves open to something that could be truly dangerous to ourselves. She ran her fingers through her hair. She looked up at the rows of brown and black books, law reports on the walls opposite. She looked at a faded picture on the 9 men on the wall, and on to the left of her is Robert's dead. She wondered. She could not remember. Her father's voice was patient. You were saying?
Yes, sir. I was saying that I don't know much about governments and economics and all that. And I don't know too much, but I know that the federal government to me, to one small citizen, is mostly dreary hallways and waiting around. The more we have, the longer we wait, the tireder we get. Those old mossbacks up on the wall there knew it. But now, instead of going through about it through Congress and state legislators like we should, when we tried to do right, we just made it easier for them to set up more hallways and more waiting. Her father sat up and laughed. I told you I didn't know anything about it. Sweet, you're such a states' rightus, you make me a Roosevelt liberal by comparison. States' rightus? Atticus said. Now that I've adjusted my ear to feminine reasoning, I think we found ourselves believing the very same things. She had been half willing to sponge out what she had seen and heard, creep back to New York and make him a memory. A memory of the three of them, Atticus, Jim, and her, when things were uncomplicated and people did not lie. But she would not have him compound the felony. She could not let him add hypocrisy to it. Atticus, if you believe all that, then why don't you do right? I mean this, that no matter how hateful the court was, there had to be a beginning. You mean because of the court said it, we must take it? No, ma'am, I don't see it that way. If you think I, for the citizen, am going to take it lying down, you're quite wrong. As you say, Jean Louise, there's only one thing higher than the court in this country, and that's the Constitution. Atticus, we are talking at the core purposes. You are dodging something. What is it? The Dark Tower, chilled Roland to the Dark Tower came. High school lit, Uncle Jack, I remember now. What is it? I'm trying to say that I don't approve of the way he did it. That it scares me to death when I think about the way he did it. But they had to do it. It was put under their noses and they had to do it. Atticus, the time had come when we've got to do right. Do right? Yes, sir. Give me a chance. Just so you know, some of these are, bit, non-politically correct, so, just assume if I'm blanking out something, just assume you means, the word I can't technically say. Yeah. The bees, we'll just say. The bees. No, not the bees, not the bees. Or, well, technically it's the N-word, but I'm just going for a little more lighthearted one. Yeah. Just say the bees. Bees. You don't think we have a chance? No, sir. What's to prevent any bees from going where we please in this country and finding what he wants? That's a loaded question, and you know it, sir. I'm so sick of this moral double-dealing. He had her stung up, and she had shown him she felt it. But she could not help herself. Her father picked up a pencil and tapped it onto his desk. Jean Louise, he said, have you ever considered that you can't have a set of backward people living among an advanced and one kind of civilization and have a social Arcadia? You're queering the pinch on me, Atticus, so let's keep the sociology out of it for a second. Of course I know that, but I heard something once. I heard a slogan and it stuck in my head. I heard equal rights for all, special privileges for none. And to me, it didn't mean anything but what it said. It didn't mean one card off the top of that stack for the white man and one off the bottom for the... B. Let's look at it this way, said her father. You realize that out of our B population and backward, don't you? You will concede that. You realize that full implications of the word backward, don't you? Yes, sir. You realize that the vast majority of them here in the South are unable to share fully to the responsibilities of citizenship, and why? Yes, sir. But you want them to have all of its privileges. Damn it, you're twisting it up. There's no point in being profane. Think this over. Abbott County, across the river, and in bad trouble. The population is almost 3/4 B. The voting population is almost half and half now. Because of that big normal school over there, if the scales were tipped over, what would you have? The county won't keep a full board of registers because of the B vote edged out of the white. You'd have Bs in every county office. What makes you so sure? Honey, he said, use your head. When they vote in bollocks. Atticus, you're like that old publisher who sent out a staff artist to cover the Spanish-American War. You draw the pictures, I'll make the war. You're as cynical as he was. Jean Louise, I'm only trying to tell you some plain truths. You must see things as they are, as well as they should be. Then why don't you show me things that are when you sat on your lap? Why didn't you show me? Why weren't you careful when you read me history and the things that I had been taught? When I thought you meant something that you were there, and was on the fence around everything marked white only. You were inconsistent, said her father mildly. Why so? You slang the Supreme Court within an inch of its life. Then you turn around and talk like the NAACP. Good Lord, I didn't get mad with the court because of the Bs. B slapped the brief on the bench. All right. But that wasn't what made me furious. I was raving at when they were telling me the 10th Amendment and all of the fuzzy thinking. The Bs were incidental to the issue in this war, to your own private war. You carry a card these days. Why didn't you hit me instead, for God's sake? Atticus. Her father sighed. The lines around his mouth deepened. His hands with his swollen joints fumbled with his yellow pencil. Jean Louise, he said, let me tell you something right now. As plainly as I can put it. I am an old-fashioned, but this I believe with all my heart. I'm a sort of Jeffersonian Democrat. Do you know what that is? Huh? I thought you voted for Eisenhower. I thought Jefferson was one of the great souls of the Democratic Party or something. Go back to school, her father said. All the Democratic Party has to do with Jefferson these days is put up a picture at the banquets. Jefferson believed full citizenship was a privilege to be carried out by each man. That was not something given lightly, nor to be taken lightly. A man couldn't vote simply because he was a man. In Jefferson's eyes, he had to be a responsible man. A vote was, to Jefferson, a precious privilege a man attained for himself in a live and let live economy. Atticus, you are rewriting history. No, I'm not. It might benefit you to go back and have a look for what some of our founding fathers really believed, instead of relying so much on what people these days tell you they believed. You might be a Jeffersonian, but you're no Democrat. Neither was Jefferson. Then what are you, a snob or something? Yes, I'll accept being called a snob when it comes to government. I like every... Sorry, I can't talk. I like every much to be left alone to manage my own affairs in a live and let live economy. I like to live in my state to be left alone to keep house without advice from the NAACP, which knows next to nothing about its business and cares less. That organization has stirred up more trouble in the past 5 years. Atticus, the NAACP hasn't done half of what I've seen in the past 2 days. It's us. Us. Yes, sir, us. You. Has anybody, and all the wrangling and high words over states' rights and what kind of government we should have, thought about helping the bees? We missed the boat, Atticus. We sat back and let the NAACP come in because we were so furious at what we knew the court was going to do, so furious at what it did, we naturally started shouting, again, really don't think I can say this, so, I'll just blank that part out. Took it out on them because we resented the government. When it came, we didn't give an inch. We just ran instead. When we should have just tried to help them, live with the decision. It was like Bonaparte's retreat when we ran so fast. I guess it's the first time in our history that we ever ran. And when we ran, we lost. Where could they go? Who could they turn to? I think we deserve everything we've been given from the NAACP, and more. I don't think you mean what you're saying. I mean every word of it. Now let's put this onto a practical basis right now. Do you want the bees by the carload in our schools and churches and theaters? Do you want them in our world? They're people, aren't they? We were quite willing to import them when they were making money for us. Do you want your children going to a school that has been dragged down to accommodate bee children? The schoolistic level of that school down the street, Atticus, couldn't be any lower than you know it. They are entitled to the same opportunities everyone else has. They are entitled to the same chance. Her father cleared his throat. Listen, Scout. You're upset by having seen me do something you think is wrong, but I'm trying to make you understand my position. Desperately trying. This is merely for your own information, that's all. So far, in my experience, white is white and black's black. So far, I've not seen and heard an argument that has convinced me otherwise. I'm 72 years old, but I'm still open to suggestion. Now think about this. What would happen if we were all bees in the South and were suddenly given full civil rights? I'll tell you. There'd be another Reconstruction. Would you want your state's government run by people who don't know how to run them? Do you want this town run by... Now wait a minute. Willoughby's a crook. We know that. But do you know any bees who knows as much as Willoughby? Zebo's probably be mayor of Maycomb. Would you want some of Zebo's capabilities to handle the town's money? We're outnumbered, you know. Honey, you do not seem to understand that the bees down there are still in their childhood. As a people, you should know it. You've seen it your whole life. They've made terrific progress in adapting themselves to white ways, but they're far from it yet. They were coming along fine, traveling at a rate they could absorb, more of them voting than ever before. Then the NAACP stepped in with its fantastic demands and shoddy ideas of government. Can you blame the South for resetting? Being told what to do about its own people by people who have no idea its daily problems? The NAACP doesn't care whether a bee man owns or rents its land. How well can he farm, or whether or not he tries to learn and trade by his own stand on his own 2 feet. Oh no, all the NAACP cares about is a man's vote. So can you blame the South for wanting to recess an invasion by people who are apparently so ashamed of their race that they want to get rid of it? How can you have grown up here, lived the kind of life you've led, and only see someone stepping on the 10th Amendment? Jean Louise, they are trying to wreck us. Where have you been? Right here in Maycomb. What do you mean? I mean, I grew up right here in your house, and I never knew what was in your mind. I only heard what you said. You neglected to tell me that you were so naturally bitter to the bees, bless their kindly heads, that they were able to go so far, but so far only. You neglected to tell me what Mr. O'Hanlon told me yesterday. That was you talking down there. But you let Mr. O'Hanlon say it. You are a coward as well as a snob and a tyrant, Atticus. When you talked of justice, you forgot to say that justice is something that has nothing to do with people. I heard you on the subject of Zebo's boy this morning. Nothing to do with our Calpurnia and what she's meant to us, how faithful she's been to us. You saw bees, you saw NAACP, you balanced the equalities, didn't you? I remember that rape case you defended, but I missed the point. You love justice, all right. Abstract justice written down item by item on a brief, nothing to do with that black boy. You just meant a neat brief. His case interfered with your own orderly mind, and you had to work order out of disorder. It's a compulsion with you, and now it's coming home to you. She was on her feet, holding back the chair. Atticus, I'm throwing it at you, and I'm going to grind it in. You better go warn your younger friends that if they want to preserve our way of life, it begins at home. It doesn't begin with the schools or the churches or any place but home. Tell them that, and use your blind, immoral, misguided, loving daughter as an example. Go in front of me with a bell and say, unclean. Point me out as your mistake. Point me out Jean Louise Finch, who is exposed to all kinds of guff from the white trash she went to school with. She might never be gone to school for all the influence it had on her. Everything that was gospel to her, she got home from her father. You sowed the seeds in me, Atticus, and now it's coming home to you. Are you finished with what you have to say? She sneered. Not half through. I'll never forgive you for what you did to me. You cheated me. You've driven me out of my home, and now I'm in a no man's land. But good, there's no place for me anymore in Maycomb, and I'll never be entirely home anywhere else. And, so I guess you're already asleep, huh? Okay, granted, I guess it did kind of go a little, over than what I originally planned. And, I don't even think I went back to the 18th chapter. Whatever. Well, maybe we'll finish that another time. Good night.